Very briefly, Minister, your department does provide for voluntary contributions. If somebody comes in here on a Class S, the voluntary contribution is €500 per year. If they come in on a Class A, it's 5,000 per year. You cannot opt to become a Class S contributor when you come in here on a voluntary contribution. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm aware of a deputy who lost his seat in this House, who qualified for the old age pension just after he lost his seat. Not sure what his career was beforehand, but the impact of 4 years on Class K is €20 a week in perpetuity of a loss to his contributory old age pension. €20 a week. It doesn't sound like a lot, but one would hope when you hit 66 that you might continue on for another 20 or 30 years before you depart this world. So I really think it's the penal nature of it. I don't mind if we can work out a scheme whereby after a certain number of years you lose a portion of any contribution or any entitlements you have, and after a few more you lose something else. I don't know, the experts can sit and work that type of thing out. But right now, I think of the people that my colleague Senator Burke is talking about, who lost their seats, and it is extremely difficult, I understand, to find employment if you've been in this House. And being a person of political interest, even being married to one, being the child of one, is a problem. I took it that it wasn't really that important until I stuck my card into an ATM machine and couldn't get any money out. And when I rang the bank and said, "What's happening here?" they said, "You got some forms to fill in, you didn't fill them in." And suddenly I found my wife's account was locked because she didn't fill them in. And my children are subject to fill them in, as are yours and everybody in this House. So I just think that we need to start treating the people in this House as workers. Even when I look at such thing as incremental credit, which has now been restored for every part of the public service, it has not been restored for members of the Oireachtas. And I understand that there are delicacies when you're dealing with these things, but I'm a worker first. And I work for the state. I'm very fortunate in the job I have, but I am a worker, and I should be treated as any other worker in the state. So I would appreciate it, Minister, if you give me some positive indication on this.
Minister.
Thank you, and I just want to say thanks to the deputies for raising this issue, and it's something, you know, anything you've said here is perfectly true. If you're a Class A contributor and you come in to this House, you suddenly have nothing. So depending on how many years you're here, it's going to impact on your contributory pension that you would maybe have paid for before you came into the House and from whatever employment. Can I just say that I hadn't proposed, you know, I don't propose to accept the amendment for the simple reason that, you know, and I said it earlier on, to make you know, to put this into legislation is just not the appropriate vehicle for seeking reports. But what I would say is that I'm very happy to consider it. I do think, and I said this last year, the best route here is to send a request to the Joint Oireachtas Committee, because if we have all party support on this, and no party, and everybody agrees on this, then I think that that's the way we need to bring this forward. But what I will commit to is providing you with the information and supporting you with any data I can provide you with from my Department of Social Protection in terms of how this can be progressed further. I think the best thing to do as we're here this evening is to write to the Joint Oireachtas Committee for Social Protection, Community and Rural Development and the Islands and ask them to consider Class K contributions by public office holders, and if you could write to the chairman of that committee and ask him for this issue to be put on the agenda for examination in a budgetary and economic context, and then the committee can bring in my officials, they can bring me in, and we can give them the information they need and deal with this once and for all. And that's what I'm happy to support you in any way I can in doing that. So, and it is true, you're absolutely right. I know one particular a member of the Oireachtas, and they weren't re-elected, but they lost their job during COVID. and they had no access to anything because the place was closed down. They couldn't go and take up their former employment because of the restrictions that were in place, and they were in a very difficult place. So I think that's a real example, and it can happen in many cases for other people as well. So can I just give you a commitment to give you all the cooperation and all of the information that you can do, that I can, but I would say the best way is to bring it to the Joint Oireachtas Committee and get them to look at it in detail and come forward with recommendations. And when it's on an all-party agreeable basis that we've all looked at this, I'm happy to take on board those recommendations.
Senator Craughwell.
Minister, thank you very much. That was a very genuine response. There is a rapporteur's report on the county councillors issue, which I would ask the Joint Oireachtas Committee to take on board, because it offers some insight into the historical background of the social protection system and particularly into the benefits. I think the offer you have made is, given we're right up on the wire for social protection and there are people waiting for payments and we need to get the bill passed. So at this stage, with the consent of the House, I'm willing to withdraw the amendment based on the Minister's commitment here tonight. Thank you very much, Minister. I appreciate it.
Senator Higgins, did you want to come?